Hi everybody, this is my EDL 850 Module 12, Tort Liability. What is tort liability? Tort liability is the legal obligation to a victim of civil wrongdoing. Tort claims involve state law and are based on the idea that individuals are liable for the consequences of their actions or conduct. Case number one, Brockett, I'm sorry, that name is very hard, versus Millard School District. This was a wrongful death action, and it was brought up against the school district by the student's mother. The student passed away after being hit in the head with a golf club in PE class. The student was absent from school when the golf unit was being introduced on the first day of this golf unit, and instructions and safety precautions were all given on that first day, and the student missed out on them. The second day, there was no safety instruction given at all, so this said student was not warned about the precautions or the dangers of this golf unit, especially with a lot of swinging golf clubs and a lot of students in the gym. The PE teacher did not follow the written guidelines and the school rules that were already implemented with this lesson, and neither the teacher or the student teacher saw the accident occur. The district was found negligent for its lack of supervision. If this case were to happen at our school, reactive measures, I definitely think the PE teacher would be under some kind of suspension or fired. The review of policies would definitely need to happen. Proactive measure, this would not have happened if the PE teacher would have followed that school policy. So that's where I think the grounds for being fired maybe could happen. The student would have had the rules explained to him upon returning to class. The rules, the what ifs, the precautionary, everything should have been explained to this student on day 2. Whoever was not there for day 1 and the introduction of the unit and the safety precautions that these students needed to take, they needed to hear it before they touched a golf club. Professional ethics would have benefited this situation by just reviewing those school policies and being present and watching those kiddos. It's so sad because they already had a policy in place. There were 2 adults in there, and this accident still happened. Definitely setting up that lesson properly would have saved this guy's life. Barnett versus Caldwell. This is a case where the teacher decided she would ask another teacher to listen out for her students while she used the restroom. 2 students started horsing around when the teacher was out of the room. The students fell to the ground with one on top of the other. One of the students dislocated his collarbone, which then lacerated a major artery, and the student was then taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. In this case, the teacher was not held liable for student injury due to the fact that the policy did not state the teacher had to be physically present in her classroom at all times. I feel as though this is a really touchy subject, because as teachers, we've got to go to the bathroom. And we've got to be able to trust our kids in the classroom, being able to handle themselves, handle the environment, and not have to be babysat all of the time. Yes, it's our job to keep those kids safe, but those kids have to make those choices to stay safe also, especially in that high school setting. If this was to happen in our school, what reactive measures do you think would have occurred? I definitely think that information to students about horsing around and responsibility at the high school level would be a big conversation, because even now, our principal, our superintendent, they know that we step out of our classrooms. They know that we expect our kids to be good and hold themselves accountable. And I definitely think our school policies would have to be reviewed if this were to happen at our school, and the expectation and what we are allowed to do would definitely have to be reviewed. Proactive measures, I just really think instructing the kids and reiterating the expectations to students that we hold them accountable. We expect them to make good decisions and we want them to be responsible. We want them to be productive members in society. And if at the high school level your teacher can't step out the door with something happening like this, then I just don't know how we can trust that that's happening. You could also instruct a student to be in charge and get the teacher if something is needed, if someone is horsing around. Professional ethics. I think this is a hard topic because showing professional ethics and using better judgment when leaving our classroom would have been beneficial. But ultimately, I mean, right now, sometimes I have to get up and say, hey guys, I have to go to the bathroom, be good, I'll be back in a minute, and we'll get this started. Being 8 months pregnant, you can't just not go to the bathroom. This is just such a touchy subject, and I really think that knowing your environment, knowing your kids, knowing what you can allow in your classroom can really help with this kind of scenario. Case number 3, Anchorage School District, negligent and liable for $4.5 million. This case was a 6-year-old kindergartner. He was hugging his teacher goodbye. He saw his mom. He was running off the playground and he fell face first into a clump of pine shrubs. As he was getting up, they noticed that a stick was jabbed through the boy's head in his frontal lobe, his hippocampus, and his hypothalamus of the brain. The judge found the school district negligent in leaving the exposed stumps and a factor for this little boy's injuries. These injuries really affected this gifted 6-year-old kindergartner. If this was to happen at our school, reactive measures would have occurred. I mean, at my school, I just can say I don't ever think that this would happen because our groundskeeper is so on top of things. But the stumps would definitely immediately be removed and the grounds would be under maintenance and evaluation at all times like they currently are. We would definitely have to review school policies and safety, both inside the building and the surrounding areas outside. Proactive measures. I mean, these stumps should have been properly removed before students, especially 6-year-old kindergartners, were able to go outside and play. 6-year-olds, I mean, they trip over everything. How can we not expect them to trip over stumps out on the playground? Maybe 6th graders, you could explain, hey, this is dangerous, stay away from it. But when they're all over the grounds of your school, I just don't think we can let our kids out to play around them. We need to continuously maintain safe grounds and communicate those hazards with teachers, parents, and students and keep the potential hazards away. Professional ethics, I just think we need to pride ourselves in keeping a safe learning environment, and to do that, we have to keep our grounds safe. We have to continuously be maintaining them and keep the environment inside and outside suitable for students and student play and student engagement and activity. Johnson Johnson versus School District of Millard. This was a 1st grade student that ended up being injured in the music room. The students were learning London Bridge is Falling Down, and the teacher was had given them instructions on how to make this human bridge and how students need to hold each other's arms so a 3rd person can crawl on top and they can sway. But then this is the first student to do this activity, and he was swung and dropped by his peers, and his face hit the bookshelf. He went flying, and his face above his right eye hit the bookshelf, and he needed 50 stitches because the muscle and everything was like pulled away from his face. The teacher did not actually see the accident. She was not close enough to catch the little boy, and the judge did find the district negligent for no supervision. I definitely think that the teacher would be reprimanded in our school if this were to happen. We would have to review the school policies and safety, of course. I think that's just kind of noted for all of these. And definitely review arrangement of furniture in the classroom, especially if kids are up and moving around. We need to know that these spaces are safe and allow those kids to do that. Proactive measures. I definitely think that this activity should have been modeled. The teacher should have been right there throughout the activity and ready to step in and support this human bridge if needed. I don't think we can just expect first graders to hear these instructions and throw kids on top of each other. Definitely needed to be modeled, and definitely the teacher should not have been writing on the board. Her back should not have been turned. She should have been there as a support system for the kids, helping them through this activity. The professional ethics here and monitoring the classroom of first graders during the hands-on activity would have completely kept this accident from happening. And I think just the professional ethics of being engaged and being involved and being present is something that we as teachers, we just have to do with each lesson, each group of kids, each activity. This next one is Barrett versus USD 529. This was a 12th grade high school student who collapsed at on the practice football field on the first day of mandatory practice of the season. Through reading this case, the coach did everything that I could have imagined. Water breaks, checking on them, frequent breaks every 20 minutes. But this student, he collapsed and he died in the hospital the next day. There's a remaining question whether the defendant's actions amounted to gross or wanton negligence. If this was to happen at our school, reactive measures. This is just so hard because through reading the case, I just feel like everything was done right. Even when the student said, hey, I don't feel good, the coach checked on him and checked on him and checked on him. But like definitely a team meeting and consulting the team about the practice and how they feel it went, how their bodies reacted to it, what needs to be done now, what needs to be done in the future, and what these players need to be healthy, to be successful. Definitely having mandatory breaks and self-checks, team meetings about signs and overheating. But they had done that. They had meetings about heat stroke, and the athletic director was well educated, the coach was well educated on it. The school had just implemented more policies about keeping the kids safe during these kinds of activities. Proactive measures, I think you can have multiple breaks as they work their way back into the practice routine and the heat of the day, warning everyone to sit and take a break when they feel that it's needed without being scared of being reprimanded, I think maybe would have helped. But in this case, I really believe that professional ethics were in place and the student seemed to push himself too far. Professional ethics will allow coaches and athletes to just trust one another and take and allow those breaks when needed. This was just a really tough case because with the evidence throughout the case, it would just be really, really hard to point fingers. But I mean, there is a life on the line and something bad happened, so it's just a really tough case. I really enjoyed looking into these cases, and I loved learning about tort liability, and it definitely gave me a new perspective on when I leave the classroom to go to the bathroom and other things like that. So I hope you enjoyed my Module 12.